We're not going to wait too long. We got a action-packed day today. While everybody's tuning in, I took the liberty to call in a favor, to phone a friend for today's episode of Coffee with Carl, and I wanted to introduce Bo Cofield, and we'll get into all the stuff that's going on, but Bo's time is very limited, so I wanted to at least ask him. For those that don't know Bo is CEO of Prisma Richland. Bo also serves on the board of the chamber. I tell you what, I don't know if you call it luck or what, but Bo's first day in Columbia was last March, the day that everything shut down. And he was new to town, but he quickly jumped right in. He didn't have a choice. Jumped right in with 2 feet in working at Prisma, but he's got extensive background in hospital and family full of practitioners as well, but has been at most recently University of Kentucky Hospital System, University of Virginia Hospital System, and now runs the largest of Prisma's operations, but here in the Midlands, but at Richland. So Bo, thank you for agreeing to put yourself in the firing line here. Wanted to get the lay of the land with you at Prisma. We're seeing these numbers crazy. I think 4 of the largest single days we've had over the last couple of weeks. Tell me your big picture, what's going on at Prisma, and how are things going for your staff?
Sure, Carl, I appreciate the invitation. I trust you can hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. I appreciate the invitation to share a little bit about what's going on here and what we're lovingly referring to as COVID 4.0 here at Prisma, really our 4th surge, if you count the initial surge back in March of 2020. Unfortunately, we are experiencing just some tremendous utilization of our clinical resources across South Carolina, across Prisma, and certainly here in the Midlands and at Richland. South Carolina yesterday became the #1 state when you look at daily confirmed cases per 100,000 people, surpassing Tennessee and Florida and several others of our fellow SEC university states. And our statewide positive rate right now is sitting at about 13.8%. That's a test over test number. So, it includes people that might have been tested twice in the last 7 days. In terms of utilization of inpatient beds, we're sitting across South Carolina, about 85% of all inpatient beds being used, and more than 20% of those beds are consumed with COVID patients. And that's about the case here at Richland as well. In terms of ICU bed utilization in South Carolina, we're at just under 85%, but more than 40% of those beds are being consumed by COVID positive patients at present. And the other thing that's unfortunate here is that this is largely all avoidable. I'll give you some numbers here in a minute in terms of the percent vaccinated inside of our hospitals at Prisma, but I can tell you that only 57% of eligible South Carolinians have received at least one of the vaccine doses, and 48% of eligible South Carolina residents have completed the full set of vaccine. Here at Richland, we've been hovering anywhere between 65 and 95 inpatient COVID positives, and that's at Richland. In the Midlands, Toomey's contributing right now. So I'm looking at this morning's numbers: 42 COVID positive patients on their base of about 156 beds. Baptist in downtown Columbia is at 33 out of their roughly 180 beds. And Park Ridge, which actually This time last year had very few COVID patients because we sort of kept it as the COVID-free hospital within Prisma, is sitting at 27 of their 75 beds. So a solid third of their patient population. So we're at 190 across the Midlands this morning. And what's interesting about the surge this time is that includes a much lower age range of patients. You know, this time last summer, we had very few, I think, on an average daily census basis, one pediatric patient in our children's hospital positive for COVID. This morning, we're sitting at 9, with 2 of those being in our pediatric intensive care unit and on ventilators. And so, you know, not a great place that we would like to be. About here in the Midlands, about 25% of our patients are requiring ICU level care, so a little bit less than that state average of 40%. And of our 190 patients in-house this morning, less than 35 are on ventilators. And so we're managing according to some new standards of care that have really emerged over the course of the pandemic. Of the Midlands COVID inpatients, of those 190, only 9.1% were fully vaccinated, and we've got about 13 that are hospitalized with at least 1 dose. We are seeing both breakthrough cases, so that 9.1%, but also breakthrough deaths. We've got 13 deaths in this most recent surge for patients who had been vaccinated, and that was the result of the very virulent Delta variant of the virus. Just across Prisma, we're sitting at just under 500 hospitalized inpatients at 494 at the end of the day yesterday, with about same number, 9% of those being vaccinated. Of the 494, 111 are in our ICU, and that is a much smaller rate of vaccine, our vaccinated patients at about 5%. So about half of the number across the hospital. And of our 72 ventilated patients across all of Prisma, just 5 of those being vaccinated, and those are the same ones who are in the ICU at present. The other thing that we're facing as a result of this surge, that it's becoming more and more difficult, as though we weren't tired and short-staffed enough, we have team members who are out. Across Prisma right now, we've got 245 team members currently out of work. About half of that is here in the Midlands, and about then half of that is from the Richland campus, just given our size and our contribution of team members to the mix. Just like the rest of society, we do have a portion of our team member base that has chosen not to get vaccinated at this point in time. We are not in a position to mandate it at present, but we are always in active conversations about what it is that we need to do. One thing that has been particularly helpful in keeping patients out of the hospital is the monoclonal antibody infusion. We're operating a center here on the Richland campus. There's one down at Toomey across the street there in Sumter from the hospital, and we're infusing upwards of 50 patients across the Midlands each and every day. Very, very few of those patients actually end up at the hospital. You're eligible for that if you're COVID positive and symptomatic, so it is doing a good job of keeping folks out of the hospital. We have stepped up our vaccination efforts as well, particularly as the booster has been introduced. It's only the only folks who are eligible for it at present are those who are immunocompromised, and we did 113 boosters yesterday. And we've been averaging about 100 a day in our vaccine site, and the rest of those, excuse me, about 40, 39 to be exact, were team members obtaining their first or second dose, which is good to see. We reopened our drive-through testing site in Medical Park 14, so you can avail yourself to that. We would prefer that when you do show up, you have a physician order for that testing, but you don't have to have one. We've got a physician who will place that order for you. The line at DHEC across the street is growing longer each and every day. I saw it out into Hardin a couple of days ago. So testing is really ramping up as well. We are working on expansion of our testing to incorporate some evenings. So look for some announcements about that coming forward. And I'll just stop and open it up to any questions that folks might have after I say just a couple more things. Get vaccinated. There is a hospital over my left shoulder here that has 89 patients suffering from COVID. There are 0 patients suffering from the vaccine. I know that it's become a political issue. It shouldn't. If we look back to 1954, when the polio vaccine was introduced, we went from 18 cases per 100,000. In 1 month, we went down to 2 cases per 100,000 patients through administration of that vaccine. I'm sorry, 6 months. Nobody knew what was in that vaccine in 1954. They didn't know the people who developed it, just like we don't know the people who developed this one on a personal basis. We don't know anything about the science behind it unless you are an immunologist. But I would take it in the eye if that's where it was going to go, because I'm looking at our people being just really, really tired. Our patients are really, really sick, and it's important for everyone's public health that we pursue something that we know has a positive impact on this bad disease. So I'm done on my soapbox. Happy to take any questions from the group.
Great. Thank you, Bo. I really appreciate the time, the update. I thought an expert would be better today than me just running my mouth. So thanks for
Don't know that I'm an expert, but I am fortunate enough to be on the front lines.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions for Bo? I don't see hands being raised, or I don't see questions in the chat box, but feel free. But a couple of things. When you saw those breakthrough cases and folks that unfortunately passed away or in the hospital, they typically have an underlying health condition. Is that correct?
More often than not, Carl, yeah, that is the case. They've got a comorbid condition of some sort, whether it's a high body mass index or previous issues with being immunocompromised, or even in some instances, heart valve replacement surgeries in the past and those kinds of things, and a history of cardiac disease. We are seeing that same thing in the children. It's typically the immunocompromised kids that are with us, and unfortunately, as a result, they're a lot sicker than we might expect.
Okay, thanks. All right, last question. Last chance for a question for Bo. All right.
Thanks, Carl, for the opportunity to share what's happening here at Richland and across the Midlands for Prisma.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for what y'all are doing every day. We really appreciate it. Keep us posted if there's anything we can do. Keep getting the message out. Vaccinations, vaccinations, vaccinations.
That's it. Thanks, Carl.
Okay, thank you. All right, have a good one. All right, let's jump into some other things. Big week. Obviously, what the court case on Tuesday was interesting. I see Dr. Witherspoon is on. Maybe he have a comment, but courts ruled that the city couldn't overstep state law. There's still a challenge out there. Dr. Witherspoon, I saw your email that you sent out last night about the second court case. Maybe a day or two before that thing comes out. I'm not quite sure when who knows what the court's decision time will be on the constitutionality question of a mask mandate through the budget. I think that's I'm not a lawyer, don't want to, but I think there's a constitutionality question of whether that they can do that. The other was the cities was spending money and whether they could do that through anyway, they have courts ruled on that, but they still have an outstanding question. So Dr. Witherspoon?
No questions or comments. I would just take what Bo's presentation that he just made, and it's just it shouldn't be this hard to try to protect kids. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, number is crazy. No doubt about it. All right, so we had the court case this week, which was huge. And we'll see the, I will say this, maybe I'm just crazy, nerdy, if that may be the case, but I actually watched it. It was fascinating to me. And fascinating reading the decisions yesterday. It was unanimous decision, but there were 3 different opinions on getting to that end result, and with a couple of dissensions in the terminology, but Justice Hearn was very strong in her words towards the General Assembly about putting the courts in a horrible situation, and I think that's right. It was poorly worded, but anyway, we'll let that one go, and they can work on it. They may come back, but right now what we're seeing, there is no thought that the General Assembly is going to do away with that language when they come back in September. So, all right, this is hot off the press for those in the industry, but that we had another court case a couple weeks ago with that unfortunate situation with a soldier at Fort Jackson. He's been moved out, so they have released him of his contract at Fort Jackson, and he's being relocated. That statement just got out just a few months ago from Fort Jackson. We appreciate the swift decision for General Michaelis and his team, but hopefully that we can put that issue behind us. We need that. All right. Other big news. This is Labor Day weekend, right? So interestingly enough, this day in history in 1894, first Labor Day was celebrated in New York on September 3rd, 1894. And also on this date in 1609, Henry Hudson sailed into a body of water that now bears his name for the first time. So Hudson Bay was named after him, but anyway, I bet that was pretty. September early, back then it was a lot cooler, I'm sure. But anyway, glad we're here for Labor Day. But this leads into another big weekend for Columbia, first from an economic development standpoint, but also from a healthcare issue where we're going. The experts have said we're going to see our spike soon. But then I would argue we have another spike coming just because Labor Day and we got 80,000 people at Willie B this weekend. So hard to think that somebody's not going to pass on a COVID bug with 80,000 people in one place, but whatever. But let's talk about that for a second. I mean, if you think about our economy and college football, what does that mean? I mean, if you look at revenues from Division I schools over the last 15 years, they've risen over 150%. Division I, and especially if you're one of the big main 5 major conferences, the revenues is through the roof. USC's impact in South Carolina is about $6.2 billion statewide. Right now, that number is about half that, 3.7 just here in the Midlands. College football is an industry, right? I mean, it is unbelievable. They say, economists say that each game brings in $8 million just in Columbia. For each home game, $8 million. That is unbelievable. And so we all see it. We all try. I mean, unless you're going to the game, you avoid that area of town or downtown just to be able to get out and about. But it does mean that the economy's back, and we expect to see restaurants full. Again, short-staffed and short-supplied, but they're going to be full, and a stadium rocking. But I am thrilled about Beamer. Forget Clemson, Carolina, whatever. It's let me tell you, you can feel a noticeable difference in downtown Columbia during game week. The energy, the excitement, it's fun. And we owe a lot of that to Coach Beamer. He is awesome. One day, maybe not during football season, but he may join us on a coffee with Carl. I don't know. I'm gonna ask him because I really like him. And I'm not a Gamecock. I root for my College of Charleston Cougar football team. We have not lost a game that we played in 105 years, undefeated. But that'll be enough about game. But I am excited about the number, having some semblance of normalcy back. I hope people are smart. I hope they get their vaccination. I know there are vaccination spots open at the university. I mean, during game day, they're going to have some places to get it. So people need to take advantage of it. All right, I'm going to stop there. And last thing, gotta give a shout out to the governor and DOT, Christy Hall, for at least really thinking through some of these one-time money. We talked about last week, some $2 billion of excess cash that they didn't think they had this year, but putting some of that through to infrastructure is important. Not just for our luxury and our convenience of getting down to the coast, but the idea yesterday announced was to spend $326 million on widening 26, 30 miles of it anyway, the interchange at I-95 and 26, but also extending out of Sandy Run another 15 miles going towards Orangeburg, widening that to 6 lanes. So we'll take it, because obviously it's hugely important for us and our convenience, as I mentioned. But you think about it, why do we need that? Is we have one of the busiest ports on the East Coast, and getting goods and services from a business standpoint to and from the port in a timely fashion is vital. And the port business is not slowing down. When they doubled their capacity last year, when they opened the Leatherman terminal, that just means that many more trucks are going to be on the road. And there's a safety issue, obviously. And I can't tell you the last time I've been on the road where I've not seen some type of backlog of cars. So it is a capacity issue. So thank you for the governor and Christy Hall for moving that along. I cannot imagine. They were thinking it was going to take 10 years before they could start construction. Holy cow, 10 years. Can you imagine what it'd be like then? Anyway, with that, I'm gonna hush it. Anybody got a comment for good of the order today? All right, Susan did put in there that we do have a issues meeting on Tuesday morning, bright and early at 8 o'clock. It will be virtual. We'd love for you to join us if you can. Listen, I really hope y'all have. Well, let me back up. I really want to thank Bo again for being on and hearing that directly from service providers. I think it hits home when he speaks with such authority. So appreciate his time this morning and what the folks at Prisma do, in Lexington and NUSC as well. But anyway, last chance for a thought.
Carl.
Yeah.
Hey, good morning.
Hello, Mr. Whipple.
I'd just like to share an observation from the National Retail Federation. That group represents department stores, internet retailers, and chain restaurants. And their emphasis was stressing the importance of vaccination for businesses to succeed. Their chief economist said vaccination is the key to further economic recovery, reopening, and rebuilding. With the outlook for the global economy continuing to hinge on public health, vaccine numbers are extremely important, not just for the United States, but for the entire world. So I just want to share that.
Yeah, I would agree with them. Yeah, quite frankly, we can't afford another shutdown. I don't think anybody's business can handle that, because we're not going to have the capacity on the federal level to push that much money through the system again. Because there are long-term consequences for putting that much money in the system at one time. We're seeing inflationary costs. So yeah, thanks for that, Chuck. Anybody else?
Good morning, Carl. This is Lynn. How are you all?
Good morning.
I'm in the car, so I'm not showing my face, but I just wanted to say I went up to Spartanburg yesterday, Greenville yesterday, to the BMW Minority Suppliers event, and I can tell you that was a class act. That was the first time I'd ever gone, and got to witness the retirement of, I can't remember the gentleman's name, the guy that was the CEO that was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
He's retiring, so they acknowledged him, and just the commitment that they had to women, minority, and also veterans. Was just outstanding, and it was just a great event. Just wanted to mention that.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I saw they named a new CEO coming. And interesting, they always, their company ruled the head of BMW Greer, which is their largest facility in the world, has to be a German. So
Yes.
they will always have a German rep leading that company in Greer. It's fascinating to go to that place. I love it.
Yes, and he was the new guy. The new CEO was there yesterday, and
Okay, good.
they had a nice little send off for him. So it was really nice.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Hello,
Hey, Carl.
Vance.
Hey, Carl. Hey, everybody. Yeah, just to follow up on Lynn and events, sound and images. We do a lot of events, thankfully, but we are seeing we'll have one book and we'll go through with it, and then we'll have one or two cancel. And we've even had them cancel because this was a new one that the people that were throwing the event, their staff had too many with COVID on it. So we couldn't even have the event because their team couldn't be there to do it. So it from a small business person, you know, that the frustration continues there because, again, in my opinion, it's very preventable. But we are making some progress, and we'll be out in Gamecock Village tomorrow and have a band and everything outside, which is great because we missed all last year from that. So a lot of us are affected too on football, and you know, those of us that work around the stadium and inside of it too. So anyway, just wanted to make a note that we're one step forward, two steps back, three steps forward, you know, still going. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's going to be, we're even on the event side, we'll see registrations, and I polled a lot of NGOs in the last week, both in South Carolina, in Columbia, and outside of the state. And we're seeing registrations down a little bit for any events, but even after the event, people register, about 40% are still not coming, which is interesting. So it's a good idea when they click and register, and then when it gets closer to it, they think differently. So, which is okay. That's going to be the norm for a while. It's just understanding those numbers and seeing what trends look like. All right, anybody else? Well, listen, I hope y'all have a very safe, long weekend. Enjoy. The weather is chamber day today. I'm telling you, it is
Great day. It's a great day.
beautiful. So be safe, get vaccinated, and if you're on the interstate, drive in the right lane. All right, y'all be good. We'll see you next week. Thank y'all for being here.
Take care, everybody.
Take care, everyone. Oh, hey.